Discover the amazing moment a millionaire CEO encounters a cleaning lady asleep, and it's transformative. Amid the relentless hum of a bustling Chicago night, John Reed, CEO of Stellar Technologies, sat ensconced in the glow of his dual screens, drowning in spreadsheets and financial reports. The world outside his glass-walled office pulsed with energy, but inside, he felt the cold grip of anxiety. His empire was built on swift decisions and ruthless strategies, yet tonight, he grappled with something unsettling, an emptiness gnawing at his insides. Sitting back, he took a deep breath, grappling with the familiar sensation creeping back: doubt. Had he sacrificed relationships for the mere touch of financial success? As the hours dripped by, John's eyes fell on a shadow tucked away in the corner of the office. A cleaning lady lay curled on the floor, surrounded by her supplies, her breathing soft and rhythmic. Initially, he scoffed, there she was, just another faceless worker in his cutthroat world. But as curiosity pulled him closer, he noticed a small photograph pinned against her cleaning cart. The image caught his breath: a woman, radiant with pride, flanked by two children. The excitement on their faces sliced through his facade of invulnerability, igniting an undeniable ache deep within him. Memories flooded back: laughter at the dinner table, the warmth of family, elements of life he'd traded for the intoxicating allure of ambition. John's mind raced, conflicted between dismissal and genuine intrigue. He nudged her awake, and though startled, Maria's tired eyes sparkled with a resilience he hadn't witnessed in years. "I'm sorry," she murmured, brushing off the sleep. When their eyes locked, he felt an electric charge. She was the embodiment of every decision he had come to regret, every missed birthday, every holiday isolated by the demands of work. Listening as she shared her dreams of art, of the gallery that haunted her thoughts, he felt an unfamiliar stir within himself, a deep longing. He recognized the difference: her passion, her intrinsic motivation for creating, contrasted sharply with his own relentless drive for profit. Each word she spoke struck chords of guilt, twisting tighter around his heart. "Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen." Now let's continue. As Maria revealed vibrant pieces of her artwork hiding in her bag, each stroke carried echoes of struggle and beauty. It was everything John had sacrificed. The deepening bond they carved amidst the sterile corporate walls ignited a sense of hope John had thought extinguished. He decided he would help her showcase her talent. But just as the warmth of the possibility began to envelop him, his phone buzzed violently. The message sent him spiraling: unethical practices at his company, scandalous, potentially explosive. Caught between loyalty and morality, John's heart raced. Could he betray his corporate empire to defend the life he'd begun to rekindle with Maria, or would he plunge deeper into the cavernous abyss of ambition he once embraced? The stakes mounted, and as he stood on that precipice, the future shivered: too sharp, too uncertain, too real. How far would he go to protect not just his reputation, but the chance to finally live authentically? John's world hung in delicate balance, leaving him teetering on the edge, desperate for a choice that could either destroy or redeem him. John felt the weight of the world on his shoulders as he stared at the glowing screen, the tension crackling in the air. The notifications of impending scandal bombarded him like a storm, each ping deepening the chasm of guilt nestled within him. He could hear Maria's voice, an echo of hope laced with passion, reverberating in his mind. She represented something he had long forsaken: purpose, creativity, authenticity. He turned back to her, only to find her watching him with curiosity and concern. "Are you okay, sir?" she asked, rubbing sleep from her eyes. Her simplicity struck him, stark against his chaotic internal conflict. Here she was, working tirelessly to support her dreams, seemingly unfazed by the whirlwind of corporate life he was entangled in. "Yeah, I'm okay." His voice lacked conviction. What did it mean to be okay anymore? If he walked the path of unwavering ambition, he would ensure his empire triumphed, but at what cost? The stakes were perilous. The thought of dishonest dealings plagued him, darkening the remnants of clarity Maria had ignited. "I need to think," he muttered, pushing himself away from the desk. As chaos swirled inside him, he stepped away from the buzz of the office, the familiar landscape of his life, as if searching for clarity amid a storm that he found himself outside on the terrace, surrounded by the city's glowing skyline. The tension in his chest tightened further as reality took root. The company that had sustained him was rotting from the inside. The allegations were poisonous and would undoubtedly sway stakeholders if they broke loose. But at that moment, Maria became a beacon, spirits filled with honest aspirations, leading him toward a crossroads he never anticipated. Decision-making had always been decisive, a cold calculation rooted in profit and loss. Yet here he stood, faced with a personal dilemma that could alter everything. What mattered more, a tarnished legacy or a chance at redemption? The road seemed starkly lit. The connection he experienced with Maria revealed a deeper truth within him, one he had buried for far too long. As he stood there, John began to formulate a plan, not simply to salvage his company but to realign his life's trajectory. He would expose the unethical practices within his organization, a self-destructive gamble that could rip apart the only identity he had fashioned over the years. But he could also forge a path for Maria, helping her pursue her art with newfound conviction. Could he delve into the company's problems while unlocking her potential? With each deep breath, he sensed the burdens loosening. A fire flickered at his core, igniting determination. He needed to confront the collusion within his office and champion truth, both for himself and the myriad of talented individuals who thrived despite struggling to stay afloat under corporate greed. John returned to Maria, resolve solidifying within him. "I can help you with your art. But first, we need to talk about my company." At that moment, John Reed felt the unaccustomed weight of responsibility redefine him. No longer solely an architect of financial success, he would embrace a role as a custodian of integrity. But as he prepared to unveil the deceit lurking in the shadowy corners of his world, he couldn't shake the nagging thought: was he truly equipped to weather the storm, or would he lose everything in the process? The horizon loomed with uncertainty, and as he stared into the depths of possibility and peril, the choice lay heavy in the air, ripe with impending ramifications. An hour spent rolling the issues around in his mind had stirred a dormant resolve, but with victory anticipated, the time had come to face the tempest brewing within the very heart of Stellar Technologies. The morning light crept through the glass walls of the boardroom as John paced back and forth, the weight of his recent realization pressing heavily on him. The illusion of control he had meticulously crafted was unraveling, thread by thread. The stakes were higher than ever, and if he was going to do this, expose the corruption simmering beneath the polished surface, he needed a solid foundation of courage. Maria had sparked something unexpected in him, and he couldn't shake the feeling that his awakening was about much more than just the company. Could it be that his drive to restore integrity stemmed from a desire to reclaim his own integrity? To embrace a truth he had avoided for so long? He turned to her, who was reorganizing files across the table. "We have to move quickly. I need your help," he said, his voice steadying with resolve. Maria looked up, her bright eyes wide with curiosity. "What are we doing?" "First, we need to gather evidence of the misconduct happening within the company. I know enough to start piecing things together, but I'll need your perspective, your talent for seeing what others miss." For a moment, doubt clouded her features. "But what if we get caught? What if it backfires?" He met her gaze, intensity building between them. "Then we'll deal with it. But inaction is worse. This isn't just about the company, it's about standing for something greater." Such clarity reignited the flickering flame of ambition within him. At that moment, he felt the shift. He was no longer merely an executive but a warrior for change. As he began outlining a plan with Maria, John reveled in the stark contrast between himself and the corporate puppeteers pulling strings behind closed doors. They decided to meet after hours to minimize suspicion. In those first days of working together, John found a renewed sense of purpose with every conversation he had with Maria. She breathed life into old, moribund ideas and inspired him to see new possibilities. Each day, her unwavering passion for her art spilled over into their mission, igniting a fire in his chest that he thought he had extinguished long ago. Together, they began poring over documents, digging through communications, and piecing together a narrative that painted a sordid picture of the company's operations. The stories he unearthed were staggering. His position had shielded him from the truth for too long. The emotions surged: anger, disgust, guilt. It was overwhelming. In the midst of their toil, the relationship began to deepen. They shared fears, hopes, and vulnerabilities. Maria's zest for life began chipping away at John's cold exterior, filling the cracks that ambition had left behind. He realized, often through late nights and coffee-stained reports, that he needed her just as much as she needed his support. They were both pursuing dreams that transcended their current circumstances. Yet, a lurking fear tugged at the back of John's mind. What if their efforts were vaporized in the face of powerful opposition? What if exposing the misconduct led to his ruin? Despite the growth he felt, uncertainty clawed at his resolve. As they compiled evidence, the looming threat of betrayal by trusted colleagues, a bitter twist he had yet to confront, painted their cause in a darker shade. One fateful evening, as they stood by the flickering fluorescent lights of the conference room, an unanticipated surge of adrenaline coursed through John. The sight of Maria so focused, entrenched in her art and their mission, ignited an instinct within him. He knew he was stepping into a dangerous game, and while the thought thrilled him, it also terrified him. "Are you ready for this?" he murmured, a hint of hesitance woven in his voice. She paused, biting her lip. "Are we really going to rip apart your life in search of the truth?" Her question hung heavy, a reflection of his deepest fears. "I'm ready to fight, but are you?" A moment of silence stretched like a taut wire, and John understood then that their journey was morphing into something profound, something that could shake not only the foundation of a corporation but the very essence of who he had become. And at that moment, the choice solidified within him: they were either going to change the landscape of their lives or be crushed beneath it. John had never felt this alive, despite the uncertainty that lay ahead. With the evidence forming before them, he could sense a tremor of destiny stirring deep within, a premonition of the storm that was brewing just beyond the horizon. The winds were changing, and as he glanced at Maria, hope mingled with fear, readying him for the impending confrontation with the very world he had created. Would the truth set him free, or would it engulf him? As doubt crept in, he couldn't help but wonder what betrayal was waiting to rear its head. The moment of reckoning was fast approaching, and they would soon discover who in this high-stakes game would fall. The evening air was thick with tension as John stared at the sputtering fluorescent light above them. He could feel the weight of the world pressing down with an unbearable ferocity. Every document they had gathered, the damning emails, the covert transactions, all pointed to a pervasive corruption he had once ignored. Was it cowardice or complacency that had kept him silent for so long? The urgency built within him, and he turned to Maria. "We can't just sit here and let this fester. We need to act now." She nodded, her resolve mirroring his but with an edge of concern. "What if we're just two pieces in a larger game? What if they anticipate our moves?" Her words echoed in John's mind, a reminder of the vast chessboard they were playing on. It was a dangerous game. But wasn't he that life itself? He had spent years managing a facade, maintaining the false narrative of his success, all while ignoring the moral decay that had infiltrated his own company. A fire, once buried beneath layers of professional apathy, flared to life, igniting his need not just to confront the outside evils of corporate greed but to face the demons within himself. "Every great story has its risks," John replied, feeling a surge of defiant energy. "And right now, this is our story to shape." They worked late into the night, surrounded by coffee cups and papers. Bonds forged through shared mission obscured previous uncertainties, transforming their partnership into an alliance of mutual trust and ambition. With every piece of evidence they reviewed, John began to uncover aspects of his own capability. He could strategize, dissect, and plan with precision, skills he had honed over years in executive meetings yet had never applied to something so personally significant. Hours turned into days, each one further testing their mettle. The two spent evenings in that conference room, pulling late hours while a portion of their spirits ignited in hope. New ideas flowed between them like electricity, solutions, strategies, daring thoughts for confronting the board, interrogating the legacy of corruption. An ambition previously relegated to the corporate elite now infused John's voice with authority, but with this burgeoning confidence came the sharper realization of what they were up against. John had begun to pinpoint who could be their greatest adversary: the VP of Operations, a man with sharpened instincts for corporate survival. Every detail about the man's past whispered of ruthlessness. He had made a career navigating treachery. A thought struck John like a lightning bolt. What would happen if the VP caught wind of their investigation? For the first time since he had embarked on this journey, doubt clawed at his thoughts. The darkness lurking within the company was more than fear, there was a sense of betrayal. Friends he once confided in could easily become foes if they aligned with the wrong side. This act of exposure could indeed tear lives apart, including his own. The stakes felt insurmountable, with each passing day awakening the possibility of losing everything he had built. Yet, what brought him back to clarity was Maria's unwavering resolve. Her laughter could punctuate the shadows of the conference room and ground him whenever uncertainty threatened to spiral out of control. They were bound in something deeper than mere collaboration. It was a shared quest for integrity and truth. He could see it in the way she approached the evidence, determined not just to unveil the company's corruption but to release him from the shackles of his own complicity. In that realization, John felt a profound transition. It was no longer just about personal bravery against the specter of his old life but the shared courage they forged together. He was ready to abandon the cautious strategist he had once been. He aimed to become the catalyst for transformation, both for the company and himself. As they wrapped up for the night, John glanced at the clock and turned to Maria. "We need to be ready. I can feel it, something's about to break." But even as his words echoed in the room, doubt flickered in the back of his mind. What would this confrontation cost? And at that moment, a sudden noise echoed from the hallway, sending a chill down his spine. Someone was approaching, and they weren't expected. The time had come to face the shadows that threatened to engulf them both. The door creaked slightly, and John's heart raced as he steeled himself for whoever was about to step into the room. The sound of footsteps approached, echoing ominously through the dimly lit corridor. This was at the moment he had both anticipated and dreaded. He exchanged a quick look with Maria, their shared unease sparking a quickened resolve. But it was the hesitation that gripped him in silence, the thought of what might happen next weighing heavy in the air. The noise grew louder and more distinct until finally, the figure of Mark, the VP of Operations, appeared in the doorway, silhouetted by the harsh light of the hallway behind him. John's mind raced with the potential consequences of this encounter, each scenario flashing through his thoughts in rapid succession. Would Mark sense their deception? Would he realize how close they were to uncovering his web of corruption? The stakes had never felt higher, and John's instincts told him this was a pivotal moment. "John," Mark greeted, his tone deceptively casual. "Thought I'd find you here. Working late, I see." The greeting cut through the tension, but John wouldn't give away the extent of his anxiety. "Just wrapping up some projects," he replied, forcing confidence into his voice. Mark stepped into the room, his presence filling the space with an aura of authority. He casually swept a glance over the scattered documents on the table. "Looks like you've been busy. Delving into the past, are we?" His words dripped with a knowing edge. John felt the gravitational pull of deceit in his partner's eyes, a tight rope woven around every word that they both carefully balanced upon. "Yes, just going through some old reports." "You know how it is," John lied, feeling the need to mask his true intentions. The tension swirled around them, growing thicker with every passing second. Mark, leaning casually against the wall, regarded John critically. It was a game of cat and mouse, and John realized with a sinking feeling that Mark was keenly aware of their activity. With each calculated pause, Mark's piercing gaze seemed to unravel John's defenses. "You know, John," Mark began, his voice lowering to a conspiratorial edge, "sometimes it's better to overlook things. The past is the past, after all. We don't want to rock the boat unnecessarily, do we?" John's blood ran cold at the underlying threat in Mark's words. This man was a shark, and he sensed the blood in the water. The reality began to materialize around him. The fight was not just with a faceless board of directors but with a real, breathing adversary who could bring everything crashing down. He could feel the tide rising, the urgency of their situation pressing in on him. This was a moment where he could either stand firm in his newfound resolve or slip back into complacency. "Think fast," he urged himself. "To act or to retreat?" "Rocking the boat would imply the boat is worth saving," John countered, finding a wellspring of boldness in his voice. "I think it's time to steer it in a new direction." Mark's smile faded, replaced with a predatory glint in his eyes. The battle lines had been drawn, but John questioned if he was really ready for the impending backlash. Yet beneath the trepidation resided an empowering realization: his desire for integrity now outweighed his fear of confrontation. "Just make sure you know what you're doing, John," Mark replied, his voice low and warning. "This isn't a game you want to lose." As the VP turned to leave, John felt the weight of uncertainty settle back into his chest. For every step he took towards justice, there would be a consequence. His mind bristled with the harsh reality of their situation. Courage was becoming a necessity, but what line would he have to cross to stay true to himself? With Mark's departure leaving a stinging silence, John turned back to the scattered evidence, his resolve beginning to waver under the pressure. Standing at this crossroads required more than just a willingness to fight, it begged for a deeper introspection. He needed to be strategic, but he also needed to be genuine. "It's time to push forward," John murmured, more to himself than to Maria, a mantra of determination forming in his mind. The last thing he wanted was to fall back into the shadows. Then, an unsettling thought struck him, planting seeds of discontent. As he gathered himself and turned to Maria, the next step emerged in his mind: what if Mark had allies within their circle? "Are we certain we can trust everyone?" he whispered, the uncertainty stemming from the echo of Mark's warning. With each additional layer of complexity, John realized that this journey was an exploration not just of corporate corruption, but of his very own principles and loyalties. He needed to protect not only his findings but also his own integrity. As the pressure grew and alliances formed in unexpected corners, what would his next move be? The battle had only begun, and he was about to discover who, if anyone, truly stood with him in this fight. John sat at the cluttered desk, the shadows deepening around him. He stared at the documents strewn across the table, their significance amplifying with every tick of the clock. The evidence they had gathered was damning, yet it felt precarious. What if Mark truly had allies? Were Maria and he the only ones willing to confront this corruption head-on? "Focus," he whispered to himself, shaking off the creeping doubt. He knew the moment demanded clarity, a sharp focus on the path ahead. They had to strategize carefully, each move calculated. In every corner of the office, conspiracies thrived. He could feel the weight of them pressing against his chest. Maria, watching him intently, broke the silence. "What's the plan, John? We can't sit idle. We need to act." "Right. But we have to do this carefully," he replied, rubbing the bridge of his nose, an old habit surfacing in times of stress. "First, we need to pinpoint who might be aligned with Mark. Identify strengths, weaknesses. We can't risk blind trust anymore." Maria nodded, her expression serious. "We'll start with the finance team. They've been in close contact with Mark lately. If there's anything shady going on, they might know. We just need to approach it delicately. We can't let them sense our intentions." As they discussed their plan, the resolve in John began to coalesce into something sharper, more defined. Previously, he had felt like a pawn, restricted and undefined in his role. But now, the urgency of the situation demanded a transformation. He would not merely react, he would act purposely. How about we create a smaller task force? Just you, me, and maybe someone we can truly trust, he suggested, the gears in his mind whirring toward an actionable plan. Let us bring in someone from HR. They have access to information that can help us gauge loyalty. We need data both on our team and on Mark. I agree, but who? Maria asked thoughtfully. We can't afford to make a wrong move. John thought momentarily, grappling with the names that floated to the surface of his mind. Cammy from HR came to mind. They had once shared a lunch discussing corporate culture and integrity. Cammy. She's perceptive and not afraid to speak her mind. If anyone can help us uncover who's on Mark's side, it's her. Maria's face brightened at the suggestion, the prospect adding energy to their cautious strategizing. Let us talk to her first thing tomorrow, then. The quiet resolve restored to John propelled him forward. Each decision now felt tangible, grounded by intention rather than fear. Yet even with this newfound clarity, he couldn't shake the gnawing thought of potential repercussions. Was he going far enough? Was it wise to confront Mark so directly? Perhaps it would be better to gather evidence quietly before making any bold moves. What if it isn't just Mark? He muttered, his eyes drifting back to the documents. What if we expose ourselves too soon? Then we prepare ourselves for the fallout, Maria replied firmly, her voice a steady anchor amidst the storm of John's spiraling thoughts. But we have to trust our instincts. Fighting this corruption is right. A flicker of doubt still nagged at him, balancing precariously on the edge of his newfound courage. There was no turning back, of that he was sure. They had opened this Pandora's box, and the ramifications of their actions loomed, dark and constant. As darkness enveloped the room outside, John leaned back in his chair, taking in the gravity of their situation. A sense of determination surged within him. He would uncover the depths of Mark's corruption and protect not only the company's integrity but also his own. They were at war, and strategy was paramount. With the last inkling of doubt receding, John turned to Maria, a steely glint in his eyes. Tomorrow, we start building our network. Piece by piece. And every decision will count. Maria grinned, camaraderie fueling the moment. We've got this, John. We're going to see this through together. But beneath the resolve, John felt a simmering anxiety. He wondered whether they were equipped for this fight. As confidence surged, so did the stakes. Could he handle the tactical moves required without compromising his own values? The machinery of conflict was already grinding into action, and John's heart raced at the thought of what lay ahead. The battle was on, and he was about to discover the true depth of his allies and enemies. What if uncovering Mark's allies revealed even deeper treachery within the organization? Morning light filtered through the blinds, casting pale stripes across John's desk as he prepared for the day ahead. As he sipped his coffee, the weight of their mission settled firmly on his shoulders. What had felt like a flickering flame of determination was now a roaring inferno. He glanced at the stack of documents, the evidence they had pieced together, and felt the drive to expose the rot within their organization grow stronger. With every moment that passed, the stakes escalated. John had to remain strategically agile. He could no longer afford to merely observe. Now, every glance, every word, every meeting had the potential to unravel the intricate web Mark had spun. They had drafted a plan, but now they needed to execute it with precision and perhaps a touch of deception. Nervous? Maria asked, entering the office with a determined stride, fresh resolve in her eyes. She seemed to embody the shift in their approach. This was no longer just about self-preservation. It was a fight for integrity, and they were its defenders. Excited, John corrected, a wry smile fleeting across his lips, though a flutter in his stomach contradicted his bravado. They were stepping onto a battlefield where trust was a rare commodity, and they were still gauging every potential ally and enemy. Cammy is waiting for us in the conference room, Maria said, her tone both encouraging and serious. Let us handle this carefully. We need her insights, not her suspicions. As they walked the brightly lit corridor towards the conference room, John silently strategized. Every word he spoke needed to be laced with sincerity, yet he had to ensure it revealed nothing of their true intentions. In the conference room, Cammy sat with a poised demeanor, her fingers tapping rhythmically against the tabletop. She looked up, and immediacy filled her gaze. She sensed the tension radiating from John and Maria. "What is going on?" she asked, a furrow forming on her brow as they settled into their seats. "We need your help," John began, his voice steady. "We're facing some challenges in finance, and I suspect something isn't right. We need insight into team dynamics." Cammy tilted her head, skepticism mingling with curiosity. "Challenges how? What kind of insight do you want?" He searched for the right balance between transparency and discretion. "We've noticed some unusual transactions and flagged a few employees who seem more loyal to Mark than the team. But we need your expertise to help identify potential blind spots on the team." Her expression shifted, clouds of hesitation passing over her features. John could sense her weighing the risk involved in supporting them. Her loyalty, his most critical assessment, was now on the line. "I can't promise anything without getting in trouble," she replied cautiously. "But if it's as serious as you say as it is." "We're in serious trouble, Cammy," Maria interjected, urgency rising in her voice. "The integrity of this company is at stake. We need to know who we can trust." Cammy straightened. "All right, I'll do what I can, but you must understand trust goes both ways." John nodded, feeling a surge of gratitude but also another wave of pressure. This fragile alliance renewed the stakes, and the burden now lay heavier on his conscience. Would he be able to navigate this challenge without compromising ideals? As Cammy discussed her insights, John's mind raced with implications. The potential for betrayal lingered ominously. He felt as if he were standing on a cliff's edge, each new piece of knowledge drawing him closer to an unfathomable depth. "There are a few employees I'm suspicious of," Cammy stated, her voice cutting through his spiraling thoughts. "They're very close to Mark." John's heart quickened. This was the information they needed, but it also reinforced his anxiety. Unveiling this network could spiral into a chaotic fallout. The meeting concluded with tentative agreements, but as they stepped back into the hallway, John couldn't shake the feeling of impending doom. They were mere amateurs in a game of chess with a master manipulator. "Tomorrow we need to dig deeper," Maria said, her voice low. "Cammy might just be the key, but we need to safeguard our moves." "Agreed," he replied, his mind racing through counter-strategies. But as they walked away, a gnawing question re-emerged: would they be able to withstand the pressure as they navigated this treacherous landscape? The deeper they delved, the clearer the danger became. Would unearthing Mark's allies reveal not just their scheme, but also awaken their dormant struggles? What dark revelations awaited them in the shadows? As the day wore on, John's analytical mind shifted into high gear, propelled by Cammy's revelations. He paced his office, searching for the missing pieces of this puzzle they had only begun to unravel. The intimidating array of papers and documents before him no longer felt like a burden. Instead, they felt like the roadmap to knowledge that could either sink their mission or successfully expose the truth. The gravity of their decisions loomed over him like storm clouds ready to burst. That evening, he convened with Maria at a nearby cafe, seeking a quiet corner to strategize. The world around them buzzed with energy, but they were ensnared in a stillness of focus. John felt a mixture of excitement and dread. This wasn't just about their careers anymore, it was about their principles. "Do you think we can fully trust Cammy?" Maria asked, biting her lip as she struggled with her own doubts. "Trust isn't binary," John replied, pushing his coffee cup away. "We'll have to gauge her sincerity every step of the way while keeping our cards close to the vest." His voice was laced with hesitation, but inside, he felt a flicker of resolve. Every moment spent monitoring Cammy's engagement could be a potential seed for doubt. The realization struck him, he was flirting with the same manipulative tactics Mark employed, albeit for a noble cause. This insight left John wrestling with an unsettling moral dilemma. Could the end ever justify the means? The following day, armed with their collected evidence and a growing understanding of the power dynamics within the company, John took the lead. He arranged clandestine meetings with some team members Cammy had identified, each conversation held in the shadows of hallways and coffee breaks. Each interaction led him deeper into the labyrinth of loyalties, revealing both alliances and hidden agendas. As he navigated these waters, John began to notice an unexpected shift in his demeanor. With every conversation, he shed remnants of trepidation, replacing it with a growing confidence. He learned to listen, to watch for signs of discomfort in his colleagues, the subtle cracking of smiles that didn't reach their eyes or the quick glances they exchanged. This wasn't merely competence, it was an awakening of a more instinctual side, one he didn't know had been there all along, yet, the creeping sensation that he was being watched dogged him. Somewhere in the labyrinth of their machinations, Mark's spies lurked, and John could feel the oppressive weight of his scrutiny. The moment he felt entirely composed, a nagging question would arise: was he becoming like Mark? Was he adopting the very characteristics he so despised as he became embroiled in deception? One evening, John met Maria again, this time to report on their progress. The air between them was thick with uncertainty as they critiqued their tactics and adjusted their strategies. "We can't afford to lose sight of who we are," he said, his voice steady but low, wrestling with the confounding realization that in this battle against corruption, they might mirror the decision-making processes that corrupted at high levels. Maria nodded in agreement, but her eyes betrayed a flicker of doubt. "We need to ensure we maintain our integrity. We're not just opposing ethical breaches, we're fighting for our own moral ground." The gravity of her words did not escape him, igniting a fierce internal struggle. Who would they become once this was over? Would success redefine their values, distort their character? The thirst for truth encroached upon their sense of self, and as these thoughts swirled in John's mind, he felt as though he was on a precipice, ready to leap into the unknown, and then the phone rang. The number flashing on the screen was from an anonymous caller. A sense of impending urgency surged through him as he reached for the phone, anxiety creeping down his spine. With a deep inhale, he answered, eager yet fearful of what revelation awaited on the other end. Would it be the breakthrough they desperately needed, or a twist that could unravel everything they'd fought for? John's heart raced as he accepted the call, a small part of him expecting the worst. The static noise of a poor connection crackled through, punctuated only by a voice hushed and urgent. "John, it's Cammy. We need to talk. Now." He glanced at Maria, who raised her eyebrows, signaling her curiosity and concern. "Where?" he asked, suppressing the tremor in his voice. "Park near the old factory." 10 minutes, she replied before hanging up. A chill crept up John's spine as he grabbed his belongings. The dimly lit cafe, familiar and comforting moments ago, now felt suffocating. He exchanged a look with Maria, her unease mirrored in his expression. They both understood the risks involved. The last thing they needed was to attract attention while they delved deeper into the murky waters of their investigation. Once outside, the air was heavy, and the streetlights cast long shadows. With each step, John wrestled with the implications of Cammy's request. Why the sudden urgency? Was she pulling them into a trap, or were they about to gain crucial information that could tilt the balance in their favor? When John arrived, he spotted Cammy leaning against her car, worry etched across her face. Her casual facade did little to mask the tension beneath. "You look like you've seen a ghost," she said with a half-smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. "Let's skip the pleasantries. What's going on?" John urged, trying to keep his emotions in check. Cammy's expression shifted, seriousness taking hold. "I've been hearing things. Conversations I shouldn't. They're starting to suspect you and Maria, especially after the meetings you've had." A lead weight settled in John's stomach. The feeling of being watched morphed into something more sinister, more tangible. "What do you mean?" he pressed, desperation flooding his words. They know you've been checking in with certain colleagues. They think you're onto something. It's risky. They might take action before you can expose the truth. Her eyes darted around, as if she feared being overheard. John felt his resolve harden. This wasn't just about their ethics anymore, it was about survival. What should we do? He asked, his mind racing through potential strategies. We need to move fast. I have evidence. Documents that could prove your suspicions correct. But we need to make sure you're not being followed. I can't afford to be linked to this, not with what's at stake for me, Cammy admitted, her voice barely above a whisper, panic creeping into her tone. This revelation ignited a flicker of hope in John, yet it came with a haunting realization Cammy's fear mirrored his own. They were all dance partners in this treacherous ballet of corporate deception, and one misstep could send them spiraling into chaos. Let me think it through, he muttered, pulling away slightly to collect his thoughts. The idea of deception now permeated their very core, twisting their plans and pathways into unnavigable thickets. The moral lines they once stood behind were fading into obscurity. Cammy leaned in closer, her voice urgent. You've got to decide if you want this, if you're ready for what's next. There's no turning back from here. John's neck prickled, and in that moment, he recognized the confrontation within himself. He could no longer pretend he was unaffected by the stakes rising higher. I'm ready, he asserted, though the tremor in his voice hinted at lingering doubts. As he turned to leave, weighing the weight of their next steps, he felt a surge of determination clashing against his uncertainties. They were about to plunge deeper into a battle not just against an entity, but the very essence of the men and women they wished to remain. What awaited on the horizon was as unclear as the storm clouds gathering overhead. Yet the battle was calling. In that moment, it became ominously clear, the truth may heal them, or it could shatter everything they believed in. Ending this uncertain phase wasn't a matter of choice anymore, it was essential for survival. In the quiet of the night, John felt an unfamiliar resolve harden within. Yet as he turned to regroup with Maria, a looming thought hung over him: could he truly carry the weight of becoming the person necessary to bring their truth into light? The moment of reckoning was nearing, and they weren't prepared for the sacrifices required to expose corruption. As dawn broke over Chicago, John Reed stood at the precipice of his professional and personal transformation. He gazed out at the skyline, the same skyline that had once reflected the solitary ambition fueling his descent into moral ambiguity. Determination coursed through him with each heartbeat, intertwining with a sense of purpose he'd long forgotten. The stakes were all-consuming, yet clarity burned within him. With a renewed sense of urgency, John had developed a strategy: leverage every scrap of evidence they had unearthed, and expose Mark's schemes, all while safeguarding Maria and Cammy. He refused to let fear dictate their next step. As he gathered the files, each document felt like ammunition, reinforcing his resolve to confront the rot at the core of Stellar Technologies. Today changes everything. We take the fight to them, he declared to Maria as they met in the safety of the conference room. She nodded, her steadfastness mirroring his newfound certainty. This morning was unlike any in the past. This time, the bright sun signified not just another day in a falsely gilded hall of corporate ambition but a reckoning. With confidence forged in their bond and mission, John began laying out the plan. They reached out to trusted colleagues, allies who shared a commitment to ethical practice. Together, they sifted through their findings, preparing for an internal meeting that would lay bare the injustices perpetrated under Mark's guidance. John's heart raced as he realized that he was not merely facilitating a corporate change, he was reclaiming personal integrity for himself and those like Maria. As they stepped into the conference room filled with apprehensive faces, John felt a weight lift. He was no longer the lone executive cloaked in ambition, he was a catalyst for authentic conversations that mattered. The meeting commenced with John's unwavering voice resonating through the chamber. We stand on the brink of a serious ethical breach, he stated, presenting the evidence of corruption, his tone balanced and authoritative. He watched the room shift, uncertainty morphing into realization in the eyes of his colleagues. They were not just witnessing a scandal, they were part of an awakening, compelled by the truths that would reshape their futures. As Maria and Cammy presented their findings, John felt the unfurling of collective courage, a camaraderie he had for so long overlooked. The tension hung thick in the air as Mark's presence loomed on the perimeter of accountability. But John stayed focused, anticipating the confrontation that awaited once the accusations of misconduct were laid bare. However, he was no longer afraid. In his heart, he understood that the embrace of vulnerability stood stronger than the shackles of ambition. As whispers circulated, a decision was finally reached. The company would undergo an internal investigation, and along with it, John's leadership would also be examined. But he realized now that this was precisely his intention. It was all about transparency and invitation for reflection, not just compliance. Exiting the building that afternoon, the sun had never seemed so bright, illuminating the path ahead. The stirring shift within him had translated into a newfound confidence, a confidence that bore no traces of false bravado but was rooted in authenticity and unyielding resolve. "Whatever happens next," John said to Maria as they walked, their relationship deeply entrenched in trust, "we did the right thing. We chose truth over convenience." In that moment, a profound sense of fulfillment washed over him. He could feel the changes within, propelled by decisions he had fought for. Solid confidence replaced his former self-doubt, and as he acknowledged the emerging leader he had become, John felt the weight of the world lift from his shoulders. Days later, as the external investigations progressed, John received a commendation from the board for taking a stand against unethical practices and fostering a culture of integrity. At that moment, the reassurance that he had rediscovered his values enveloped him, transforming his internal tumult into external validation. Standing in front of the same glass windows that once isolated him from compassion and authenticity, John smiled at the person he had become, a leader not defined by profit, but by principles. He had conquered the ghosts of his past, no longer sacrificing personal connections for corporate success. As he drove away from the office, John honored the transformative journey he had undertaken, recognizing that he was now firmly aligned with his values. With each mile, he felt a surge of gratitude for Maria and Cammy, the steadfast allies who had stood beside him in the darkest moments, illuminating the road forward. "Goodbye to ambition that blinds," John said softly to himself, embracing the dawn of his new life, a life grounded in integrity, relationships, and compassion. This was just the beginning. You need to subscribe now to not miss the next exclusive emotional stories of personal transformation. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm and help us reach more authentic stories. Comment your reactions and theories about this transformation. Share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this powerful conclusion. Don't wait even one more second to show your support.